And we are recording live, as is the case every time we are recording. Oh. All right. In this video, I don't know what we're going to do in this video. I'm coming back to basics. I'm going to just draw. There'll be no challenge. We'll check in. The energy level is moderate, if not low. It's evening, it's about 7 p.m. where I am, and I need a ruler. I don't know. Where can I find a ruler? Rulers are for wimps. One. And we have a frame. All right. Tight. And let's begin our exercise in patience and futility. Yeah, as you can see, I haven't started drawing yet, and I don't know, sometimes I find it easier to talk while I find it difficult to draw, and sometimes it's the opposite. Where should we start? I guess standard spot to start with is the upper left corner if you're right-handed. That prevents you from smudging your drawing. And here we are. Now we are just starting and not forcing it. There's a certain state of mind that I'm looking to achieve, which is called by many people a flow state. In this case, it's where talking and drawing kind of create an entity, a full experience where drawing and talking don't seem to be separate. And then I happen to touch on some other issues. There's some philosophizing going on. If you're new to this channel, it's just this. It's just leaving a mark on the paper, sort of like weaving and ranting about all sorts of stuff that comes to mind. Nothing is scripted. All I know is that I'm going to be drawing and talking, or just drawing, rarely just talking. The drawing powers the words, and words also influence the way I draw. The drawings that I do that I finish on my own without talking are much more focused and elaborate, very more detailed, I would say. Different. And usually it ends up being abstract configurations of blobs, where it's kind of interesting to have people actually see shapes in those abstract forms and maybe comment and tell me just timestamp the video and tell me at which time you saw this shape. Maybe I saw Jesus at 45th minute of this video, and then I can look at it and and then say, oh yeah, there he is. So there's really not much drama, not much controversy. It's mostly process. It's tapping into an aspect of creativity that the AI still can't touch, which is the experiencing of the process and the emotions that come with creating and reflecting on life and on creation. And that's something that the robots won't do for us. We all have to experience creativity by ourselves. Nobody will do this for us. Not a robot. Sure, if you want a quick t-shirt design, then you can have it in 30 seconds or less. ChatGPT will make a perfect design for you, but nobody will experience it. There will be no brain behind it. I mean, aside from the artificial intelligence brain, which creates an illusion of awareness. So the moral dilemma that I talked about earlier with artificial intelligence is that what should we do when the artificial intelligence will achieve such level of illusion in imitating genuine human emotions that we will be wondering whether their emotions, their tears, so to speak, are genuine. And and then we can ask them, what's the difference? Like, are you real? And then they will say, if you can't tell the difference, what does it matter if we're real? I think I'm starting to think of inspirations for this show. This channel. And one of them, for sure, is a show that came out during the pandemic on HBO, Painting with John. John Lurie, a great artist and musician, an actor, made a kind of low-key, clunky TV show on HBO, which was just about him painting his watercolors and telling stories from his life and like making little animations. Some of these stories are kind of almost like, I would say, made up. Some of them are absurdist and fun. It's a lot of funny situations. But of course, his stories from his life are a lot more fascinating than what I have to say here. Except there's no competition. Everybody has their own experiences. Some people's lives are more or less eventful, more eventful or turbulent. I don't know. I choose boring. Boring is good. If you're having too much going on, then you don't catch a break. It's not fun. Boring is good. It's a great motto. So it's spring here. Now it's mid-April, and everything is kind of starting to bloom and sprout. It's still light out at 7 p.m. Pretty nice, and it just feels really nice to go outside and feel comfortable. Just wearing your t-shirt and shorts. Just pretty much over the winter we forget how nice it is and kind of get used to the harshness of cold weather. Then when the spring comes, we kind of like, I've forgotten how nice it is. It's kind of slow going. Shapes are kind of showing up, but I'm being quite repetitive and everything so far seems gray. I don't know, this paper is not really... I'm just using this kind of a slightly thicker printing paper, and the pencil kind of chokes on it. I don't know, it's like that time when I used paint samples to draw on. Isn't much to say. I've been doing a bunch of medical tests and exams. It's kind of boring, but I've been not feeling too well, and so far all the tests come back clear. No cardiac issues, no allergies, no food sensitivities. So the question is like, so why am I feeling so crappy a lot of the times? And one of the answers can be stress. And then what am I so stressed about? I kind of retired now. I don't have any major stressors. I don't have screaming children with me, or bossy boss breathing down my neck. Everything is quiet and calm, and then I think that the feature of human brain is that when things get quiet, it tends to create anxiety out of thin air. So the kind of paradox of modern anxiety is that we don't have the threats that we used to have, but the anxiety stayed the same. We basically feel the same fear that we felt when we faced a rhinoceros or a tiger back in the day. And now the fight and flight response comes unannounced at any random moment for no reason, and you just start gasping and your heart rate increases and you start breathing heavy, and there's no threat. So yeah, one pattern that I think I may have noticed is that I tend to be feeling more anxious when I turn my focus inward, in a way that I'm more focused on fulfilling my own needs rather than helping out other people around me. And whenever I kind of turn into this consumer, it's like me, give me, then I feel like there's never enough, and I feel like the anxiety kicks in when I feel that the unfulfillment of like that kind of consumer's mindset or selfish mindset. And then when I turn, it's almost like holding a mirror. You're holding a mirror facing yourself, then you might not see past that mirror, and then you focus on your own, like maybe imagined diseases, or like you become very hypochondriac, or just kind of focusing on your own needs, that feels like there's never enough. Whereas when you turn that mirror around, then you start focusing more on other people's needs. Like, where can I help? What can I do? And then you just totally distracted from the stress that you felt. Even if you find yourself in stressful situations of, I don't know, if you are a EMT or working in intensive care as a nurse, all these very stressful situations don't really move you as much as if you were a person who is kind of focused on their own needs. You're just really programmed to step in and help out, and you don't even overthink anything about what you might need as a person. And of course, it's important to have your needs met, but if you completely turn your attention towards how can others help me, then you start seeing that others don't really think about you much, which is fine, but it starts to bug you, and you're like, wait, what about me? And then when you turn around and you start focusing on how you can help, and suddenly you become one of the people who help. And then everybody's thinking about what can they do to improve the well-being of other people, and that really is a total anxiety killer. It makes the anxiety go poof. And I sort of realized that last week when I was like, wait, I've been anxious, but when was the last time I helped with something or felt needed or useful? And that kind of hit me, and I thought, oh, okay. So now, as soon as I realized that, I felt much calmer. So really kind of, it's not really about just, helping people only, but more like focusing on turning your attention outwards, go out and ask a stranger if they need help, or even start a small talk with someone you don't know, and it just sort of really shifts that attention from the mirror, turns from you to the outside world, and then your ego kind of quiets down and you feel less anxious. And that's something I've already processed and kind of forgot. It's crazy how you have to have a refreshment course every time. Because when I struggled with anxiety some years ago, I did things to help myself, which was to help other people. So like I volunteered and like I was more active in terms of like I cooked meals for the shelter, and I've learned how to cook large meals in large bulk. And learning curve was there too. And one time I cooked something that was way too spicy, and like one rule about cooking for a group of people is people who you don't know is to cook something that's most universal you can think of. So like nothing very spicy, like even not very salty, because some people might suffer from some cardiac issues. And then let people season their own meal as they wish. So I made some kind of curry stew that was way too spicy once. But I hope at least some people enjoyed it. It was cooking for shelter for women mostly who were going through a rough time, like they lost their home because they've been victims of domestic abuse and they had to flee, and they are looking for new life basically, and they don't have anywhere to go, and they don't have a job, and they have to like figure it out. And while they're waiting, they can go to that place where they can get food and somewhere to sleep. And then I had this like weird dissonant savior moment. It was like I'm like kind of proud of myself bringing this trays of food to that home, and like I parked my car, took the trays out, and then I was just trying to get into the house. It's kind of like in a large house, and I was about to ring the bell, and there was this lady there at the door, kind of suspiciously looking at me and like asking me questions like, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" And I'm like, she was kind of hostile towards me, and I was like, but I'm helping, I'm bringing food. But I did understand, because I look like the person that they know in their life that harmed them, and they don't trust middle-aged men for obvious reasons. I was like, that's not fair. I cooked all that meal for you, and you being suspicious towards me and a little rude, and like, but like that's what I thought, but yeah, I didn't say anything. There are these kind of traps that we fall into, like thinking that we are the saviors, and or like complaining about being a man and not being able to do certain things for fear of being accused of being a creep. Like I would say, like imagine me at my 50, I'm 50 now, and imagine me like signing up for a yoga class where mostly women attend, and then like I would be kind of cringed at if I signed up to yoga, or like certain things that men are not or should not do in order to avoid creeping out women. Even if I really wanted to sign up to yoga class, I might not be able to, unless it's like specifically mixed gender or men only yoga class, which is not a thing, because men, let's face it, men suck at doing shit. Men don't organize. The kind of men of my age, there's a big loneliness epidemic among men of my age. And whenever there's an event, some kind of workshop, a lecture that's free of charge, some kind of initiative in the neighborhood, look around, there are only women. There may be like one dude, two dudes sitting in the audience. Men don't do stuff. Like, it's really pathetic. They don't connect to each other on deeper level, only on a superficial level, talking about tools and sports. But it's very sad. And we talk about like patriarchy, and many people talk about this, kind of make fun of it. A lot of men are like, patriarchy, haha, feminists went nuts. But that system actually does harm not just one side. Everybody is screwed. Because men shut down and they're playing tough. They don't ask for directions. They don't want help, and they don't want to help others. And they're just kind of stuck in their man caves, watching sports, drinking beer, or like riding loud motorcycles. And what else? What's beyond that? Nothing. It's just they don't have any deeper purpose. So like there's a lot of suicides in middle-aged men. So that's the content that can get me demonetized, but I don't care. Like I hear sometimes these words being like cut out of the video for fear of being demonetized, and it's kind of sad too. Like our speech is being distorted, and we are willing to have our speech distorted because we will lose a few dollars. It's kind of how the free market trains us, and we don't mind. We're like, okay, yeah, makes sense. If I say suicide in my YouTube video, I will be punished. There's some other words that are banned. I don't remember. Just anything controversial or upsetting, or swear words. So yeah, there is freedom of speech, but you lose money if you want to speak. So speaking costs you. Speaking freely costs you money, and if you want to have a freedom of speech, you have to buy it, basically. And it's like there's no oppression, there's no oppressor, there's no like dictator that tells you not to say these words. It's just simply the way it is. You say suicide in your video and boom, you lose money, and everybody is like following meekly the rules and like erase all these words from their videos. I don't know. everything is sort of an illusion. We have an illusion of freedom of speech, or of freedom in general. What kind of freedom is it? Like, imagine like we're basically beings that can be sustained from eating plant matter, and plants are relying on sun rays to grow, photosynthesis, and water and nutrients in the soil, which is basically poop. And yet it's basically free. Solar energy is free, unlimited, and everybody can actually grow a plant, and plants are food. And you can grow animals too, but it's also totally possible for humans to be vegan or vegetarian and survive. And it's stupidly easy to grow food for your own needs. Of course, there are risks. If you're a farmer, you might have a flood or drought, and then your crops are gone, and then you have government subsidies bailing you out, so that you can produce more when the disaster is over, and the government taps into the reserves. But most of the time, you can grow your food in your little garden, or even in your apartment. All you need is solar energy, water, and soil. And yet we're willingly participating in the system that makes us work at a job that we hate most of our lives. But basically, a majority of our time is spent on doing something that we hate doing, only to get these weird tokens for which we exchange for food. Like if you try to explain this to a visitor from outer space, it would start feeling really weird, and you will start questioning this while explaining it. Like, wait, why are we doing this? And many people actually did set themselves free from that system. They went off-grid. They engaged in what's called permaculture. They built sustainable dwelling, and they cultivate their own food, and sometimes exchange with other people who cultivate other kind of food. And they rely on solar energy, maybe their nearest source of water, and they turn their leftovers and poop into compost that helps in growing more food. And like, it's that simple. And yet we complicate this. Like, why does it have to be so complicated? Taxes, money. The more money, the better. And then you kind of have more money than you can do with. And like, why? What will you do with the money? I mean, of course, if you are easily bored with things like fresh air, nice nature around you, healthy food that you grew, if that's boring, then I don't know what can help. Because what do we need? Like people who amass large amounts of money, what do they end up doing? If they're lucky, they end up traveling, maybe building a mansion in the middle of nowhere, and then a swimming pool maybe, and then they end up just lounging in that surrounding. But like, if you don't do those things, if you don't work so hard to amass that much money, you can still do the same thing. You can still lounge somewhere in a beautiful setting. So I don't know. I mean, what is it that rich people have that the poor people don't? I mean, poor people, the people who figured out how to free themselves from the greed and greed. So let's say you are mega rich, you have billions of dollars, you travel around in a private jet, and what and so like what else? what do you contribute? What's your, is it, I don't know, even the food, like if they book a dinner in a fancy restaurant and they eat $5,000 dinner, it's really not that much better food than a fresh food that you get from a farm. And the most fancy thing about this food is its price, basically. Like, it seems kind of sad, very empty. Would you get invited to better parties when you're rich? Like, but what if you hate parties? I hate parties. I feel much better by myself in the forest or on the beach or with the person I like than, trying too hard to be funny and loud, performing in front of people I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to maybe try to steer myself away from this rant and focus on something more positive. Oh yeah, so I've been looking for signs of positivity outside or in my life in general lately. It's kind of like ignoring the bad stuff and finding the good stuff, which is a little harder because bad stuff hits you harder. Like, I interacted with a post office employee today and it was very unpleasant. He was mansplaining things to me that I already understood, he said, and I wanted him to advise me on what sort of option for sending this package is, what's the safest option, and he wouldn't tell me. He just assumed that I don't understand the options, and he kept explaining the same thing to me, and he's like kind of treating me like I'm stupid and like, let me explain it to you once more, but I already heard you. I know what you said. I just need your advice. But so that kind of situation really stays with you, and you kind of remember it more than like like a few minutes later, I came from the post office and I sat on a bench in a park, and there was a woman on it was like in her 20s. She was on a little hammock. There was a little hammock station in the park, and I heard her sing, and she was probably a really well-trained singer. Her voice was just really rich, and the singing was really top notch. It was kind of like having a private concert outside in the park. And I was like, why can't I focus on this kind of stuff? This is the stuff. This is the good stuff. I kind of ignore. There's a lot more good stuff than the bad stuff. And the problem with the good stuff is that there's no controversy and there's no drama, so we're more likely to focus on stuff that bothers us. Kind of like, if you have a pebble in your shoe, then you won't even enjoy the yummy ice cream that you're eating. So I don't know, it's kind of going slow. I don't know, I'm feeling like I'm slow thinking today, and I think could be something having to do with either being tired or with what I ate even. Like I've made a bunch of pancakes today, just now, and they had to be gluten-free because I'm being careful with gluten because of some sensitivities I had. And sometimes I wonder, like, if I eat something that's very doughy and like kind of a lot of carbs, then I feel very sluggish, and sugar too, because there was some syrup on it. But I bet if I ate some green leaves and legumes and like nuts, I would feel much fresher and sharper, and I wouldn't be talking slowly and with hesitation. Probably also need to get a sip of water. I'm quite thirsty. Remember to hydrate. Sometimes we forget to hydrate, and it can make us feel sluggish because dehydrated bloodstream is basically thicker. It's harder for it to pass through the arteries and veins. That makes us feel sluggish and miserable. So like every morning I drink that much water. After waking up, you're basically dehydrated. So if you are, jumping out of your bed and drink coffee right away and go to work, and don't drink for another 5 hours, and no water at least, then the coffee itself is not enough, because coffee actually makes you lose even more water. It's diuretic. So water is life. And water, not soda, no like other beverages. If you are having trouble drinking water, sometimes there are some things that you can do, like add some salt or lime juice, something that makes the taste of water a little bit more palatable. Or just try small sips. And that was the train. I'm not sure if you heard it. The trains have been super loud lately. At midnight or around midnight, so I can't even go to sleep when I want to. I have to wait for the trains to pass, and usually I think the train operator that passing us by has some unfulfilled ambitions of becoming a jazz musician, because his like horn improv is really intense, and it's almost like he's angry at something. He keeps honking. I think it has something to do with the new construction that we've had just finished by our building, which prevents the train operators from seeing the tracks or what's around the tracks. Because of all the new construction, there could be a person or even an animal that might jump out of the sudden in front of the train. So they have to really make sure that they warn potential wanderers that they're coming. That's one theory. Or my other theory is to make sure that people living in the neighborhood don't have it too easy and don't get to sleep well. I don't know. So that exercise of drawing a Martian from last time was fun, and I'm preparing for another one. I found another description of a creature that's called Puppeteer from another book. And there are very weird creatures, and I'm actually not preparing with sketching it, just mentally preparing to try to draw that creature based on just description. And exercise my illustrator's muscle a little. And then another thing I was thinking of doing is another challenge, which is I found my old illustrations from way back when I was in my 20s, and they were so clunky because I was just learning the curves, and I don't even know how the publishing house approved those illustrations. Like I was looking at the cover I made for a book, and I'm scared of how was I able to pass as an illustrator. But yeah, I'm planning to re-examine that illustration, embarrassingly enough, here in the video, and then try to draw it again, but as a 50-year-old artist, and see how much better I would do, how much more expressive the illustration can be, and how much better the composition can be. Because I've noticed so many mistakes I've done, like rookie mistakes about composition, color, and basically just planning out the illustration, and also the expressions of the characters and the movement. It was very awkward. It's kind of fun to re-examine the old work and try to see how well I would do now, and would I be hired again. So yeah, there are ideas brewing, and sometimes just not enough time or will to do it. yeah, it's kind of nice. I think I reached that flow state because I'm just not really paying attention to what I'm drawing. It just kind of comes out. Whatever the drawing wants to be, that's where we'll go. And the talking, it's still a little clunky. I don't know what I'm talking about. I feel a little like I'm straining to speak. Yeah. I prefer reading because it's already written, and improvisational speaking is not my strongest skill. I guess I will never be a rapper. I do like open mics. I just kind of show up and read a poem or a story. Next time on Friday, next Friday, I'm going to read a science fiction, kind of absurdist science fiction story at the open mic, and I'm preparing for it. And the hardest part of the preparation was to find a way to shorten 30 minutes of reading to 7 minutes of reading. And that was a perfect exercise in restraint. And I realized that when I simplified and shortened this text, it became a lot more concise and understandable. I couldn't believe how much fluff I could eliminate and still, without losing meaning, but even with adding, with enhancing meaning. When the sentence or phrase became shorter, it was a lot more direct. So the essence of the story transpired even more. So it was a very interesting exercise, and I kind of want to do more with other stories that I've been writing that may have been overwritten. And that's very hard to do with speaking too. I was always accused of talking too much when I was coaching. Too much talking. And I'm like, me? Too much talking? I'm not a talker. How can you accuse me of too much talking when most of the time people kept telling me how I'm so quiet and I don't talk much? How is it now a problem? And it was because as I was overwriting that story, I also tend to overspeak. I used words, I meander, and I use words that can be replaced with something much simpler, with better way of conveying the meaning. This happened again. That's weird. This happens by itself now. Alright, ghosts. Maybe it's overheating? No, it's LED. Weird. I'm going to have a bright area in this part. You need a little bit more contrast, be more decisive. Also, concise message. Maybe there is a way to learn how to speak with more impact, but simplify your language, which was actually a project that I did in college, which was a sort of ironic take on my own inability to speak good English. And I since I struggled to understand what people were saying to me, I decided to turn it into a course for them to simplify their language so that I could understand them. And there was even one person that called me because they saw my flyer and they said, what is it about, simplify your language, simplify your English? So I explained that, it's just my kind of a commentary on being a foreigner in America and understanding very little what people are saying because they're using complicated language. So what's the better way to simplify your English than to try to explain things to a foreigner? And I have to say that people who interact with foreign people a lot have a much better skill in communication. They can be understood easily, and they also are able to understand others much more when they talk. Because one thing that I noticed in general about average humans is that they rarely even understand what's being said to them. And that also includes me. I sometimes feel like I know what someone is talking about, and then it turns out that I formed my own idea of what I thought they were talking about. And people don't listen to each other. There's like a very small percentage of meaning that people derive from what others are saying. It's just a tiny fraction of, like, you kind of guess what people are trying to say to you, and then you project your own sort of experience onto it, and then it turns out that you're just basically talking over each other's heads. That's why there's so many misunderstandings. Even in comment sections, especially with writing, because it's very hard to convey the meaning in your words when you don't use your tone of voice. You don't, if you speak, you know how to make your voice sound sarcastic. Maybe you wink. Emojis help a little bit. And then I lately started just indicating that what I'm writing is sarcasm. So like I would call it sarcasm key, so that people don't get offended at what I wrote, taking it seriously. Like, wait, I was just joking. Just relax. So I'm having trouble really leaving that breathing room, like really just leaving a white area. I always have to mess it up. Maybe that is part of the same sort of tendency to overthink, to over-explain, to overwrite things. So I'm overdrawing here. Like, why can't I leave a large area just light, bright? I already kind of messed up this part with these squiggly lines. This is really not the kind of quality of line that a trained person would call a drawing. It's like, the trained person, if you're training to be an artist, then they tell you that you have to use cross-hatched or even like dashed line like this, cross-hatched. But these kind of squiggly spirals are not considered professional. But that's a doodle. That looks like clouds. But of course, every free form has a tendency of turning into a cloud at this scale. Cloud or a rock formation or a tree bark. And then on a larger scale, the planetary scale, everything turns into a sphere, because that's how the gravity compacts matter. Yeah. So yeah, I was mentioning some medical tests I've been doing. Today I've been doing echocardiogram, and it's pretty cool. I had it done in 2013. That's like 13 years ago, and it was fine. It came out clear, and it was also when I felt this wave of anxiety again, and I felt like, oh, maybe I should check out my heart because it doesn't feel right, and of course it turned out to be stress, and this time it seems like it's the same, and it turned out that the technician was asking me, so you have a pretty slow heart rate usually, and I said, yeah, I do. And it's usually it's either a sign of a serious heart condition or just being active, and that's the second option, I'm assuming, because I've been active pretty much every day for the last 17 years. Like something pushed me to run. I went to a trail at the age of 33, and I did a little jog, and I just remembered how refreshing it felt, and how much it makes me feel accomplished and tired, but in a good way. There's a good tired and there's a bad tired. And then, like after that first run I did in this on the trail, I never stopped. Just started running more and more seriously. Of course, I had to go through the phase of like, injuries and pain, because my legs couldn't take that much load suddenly, and I had pretty serious shin splints for a long time. I had some heel injury, I had some ankle injury, hips, and like it just took a while for me to kind of morph into a more resilient human. And also a lot of research. You have to really be careful with what you do, how soon, with what volume. It just sometimes feels like you can do more, but if you stop your session at the time when you feel satisfied, when you feel like, oh, I could do much more, but I will stop here, I will cash in, take my check to the bank, and then start over tomorrow when I'm fresh. And then that kind of mindset is much more sustainable when you are active than just going to the max every day and tiring yourself as much as you possibly can. It leads to burnout, and leads to a short-term adventure with fitness, unfortunately. So yeah, it's just be yourself. Whatever you need will work. But if you are looking sideways, you look at other people, that person has much more, much faster personal record, or they train a lot more than I do. How can I be like that person? And that's a recipe for disaster. You can look up at, you can have role models, but I don't even think that your role models would recommend that you do exactly as they do, because everybody is different, and at the different stages of the journey too. Because back when I started, if I started with the volume of activity that I'm applying now, I would be in trouble. And right now, the threshold kind of changes and grows. You can do more with time, and then what before felt like a grueling workout now is just a warm-up. And then you have to add some more volume, some more weight, maybe more mileage, but very gradually. There's no rush. The more gradual it is, the stronger your base will be, your basic strength, foundation. And then you'll have very slow heart rate at the age of 50. That the echocardiogram technician will be amazed. What are you, Michael Phelps? No, I'm just an artist dude. Average 50-year-old. Yeah, but it does help to get tested, to eliminate all the possible speculations about conditions and diseases that you might have that make you even more anxious. And when you feel like, when you have the test results that tell you that, your heart is strong, there are no issues, then you feel better, obviously. And you start feeling like, I think my heart can handle a lot more than I thought it would. I think I drew a dragon or some kind of horse, or a weird moose of some kind, or a puppy. Who knows? So try not to over-explain and not over-draw things here. Let it breathe. Sometimes it's hard to let go. It also goes for relationships. Like sometimes you're very passionate about something and you share that interest with a friend, and then you become very almost intense and really one time I was sharing some aquarium hobby experiences with a friend on the other side of the continent. We just do fish keeping, aquascaping, and then she kind of bailed out because I think I was too obsessed. I kept posting, this is what I did, this is my new idea, I just got a new aquarium, and it was okay, I'm getting off this stop here. So kind of really easy to forget to let others breathe, to let things breathe, to let leave some air. Otherwise it's just becoming a page filled with graphite and there's no breathing room. So it's kind of funny. I'm just kind of realizing that maybe I will not post this video, and like, how does it change my attitude towards this exercise? Feel more liberated, maybe. I can talk about whatever I want now. I can even say things that are controversial, like suicide, or say swear words. Oopsie daisy. Now I get demonetized. And like, it's funny because the paradox of it, I really like paradoxes. Once I decide that this rant is not suitable, it's just I'm not feeling it today. Like I'm really clunky. My brain doesn't, the cogs are not turning. So I decide that this is just, I'm just going to finish it, and I'm just basically talking to myself now. This is it. But as soon as I start thinking about it, I loosen up and I start thinking about things that are much more interesting to talk about. Maybe my drawing starts to improve, and then immediately I'm like, wait, this turns into a good thing. And then I'm like, oh, I'm back to posting it, and then I lose it again, and I'm like, no, I lost it again, because I'm back to being self-conscious, back to thinking about how I'm going to talk to an audience rather than just to myself. So like, how do I, like, you can't, there are certain things you cannot unsee or unthink, because I already thought of it as being something that I will not post, and that gave me like momentary energy, and like I felt like it felt very liberating, and I felt like I could talk about whatever I wanted, however I wanted, that I could screw up. And then the very moment that you realize that you are free to screw up without consequences, then immediately, ironically, you don't screw up, because you have that extra breathing room. You have a margin of error, so to speak, very wide margin of error. And then sometimes when margin of error is very low, then it just feels like balancing on a tightrope. Every tiny little movement can throw you off balance. There's no room for mistakes, and that actually causes mistakes. The self-fulfilling prophecy, the very thing you worry about happens because you worry about it. I don't know how much time passed, and I also feel like when I decide that this is just for me, then I become more sloppy both in speaking and in drawing, and I'm like, why? Like, I can even stop here, and I want to finish and stop, and I'm rushing. That's a little material for a therapist. So like, if I ever work with a therapist, I just send them to this channel. Like, this is all I had to talk about, so just brush up on that and then tell me where to go from there. Give me your diagnosis. It's not as simple as this. Yeah, I don't know if this will ever help me achieve a better skill in forming my thoughts and be more precise in expressing myself. I mean, when I think about it that way, it introduces this sort of, transactional thinking of like, I'm doing it because I want to do better at this and that. I want to be a better public speaker, and then I want to make more money from that, and that like kind of defeats the pure intention of this exercise. You just, basically meditation for its own sake, which is what it started as. Just kind of anchoring myself in the moment of just doing this. And even when I talk about past or future, I am aware that these are just concepts and that I'm not actually dwelling in the past or the future. I'm just telling stories about it. So like, if the teachings of mindfulness and Buddhist practice was taken literally, everybody would strive to be like a moss or lichen on the rock, just sort of being in the moment like a vegetable and never considering past or future, never really telling stories, never watching a movie, being in the now, and that, because that's the only thing that matters. But that's a trap. You can't. That's kind of very easy to misinterpret the concept of mindfulness, because you can still be in the now while viewing an bunch of old photographs and reminiscing about your college years or your school years. This is also a mindful exercise in looking at your past and not like regretting things. Just, okay, that was the past, that was me. Oh look, that was me, but it doesn't really seem like it was me. It was some other person. And she's not now gone, and now me is here. I'm here now, and I'm looking at myself from the past as if it was a story, with some level of detachment, maybe a hint of nostalgia, which is also pleasant. It's very nice to be nostalgic, but without, within reason, with moderation. Otherwise, we just regret. Our whole lives are just regret, and the moment we experience now will pass, and it will become a past moment, and then the future selves will look at that moment and say, "Oh, that moment was so wonderful, and it's gone now." And like, why didn't I appreciate this moment back then? But now you're in this moment, and again, like, the future you will look back at this moment and say, "Oh, that was a wonderful moment." It's like, how can we enjoy the present moment as we do when we think about when we think about past, as we enjoy the past moments? When we remember them, there's this like mood. Like I think about the 90s, and I feel this mood, like there was something in the air. The 90s era, the flannel shirts, and bandanas. There was a mood, and like I don't remember feeling that when I was there in the 90s. Like it just kind of forms in hindsight the mood of what is the mood of 2020s? I don't know yet. It's going to come clear very likely in a decade or two. Oh, the mood of 2020s, 2026. Yeah, nostalgia is a strange thing. The 80s. And then like we associate colors to decades. Like 80s was like a lot of pink and purple and aqua and like kind of bright colors and shiny. Maybe yellow, but like really electric yellow, not like 70s yellow. The 70s was basically everything in the 70s seemed like it was stained by a cigarette smoke, kind of yellowed or orange and brown. Just everything was like that tint. And then the 60s, more aqua. Everything was painted with this aqua color, and maybe beige cars and aqua, and some, I don't know what else, like juicy primary colors sometimes. And then the 90s, I don't know, I just mentioned flannel shirts and bandanas, but 90s were kind of mixed. Because 90s, the pushback of the 90s in culture, in music, in popular music, was to turn away from the like cutesy songs, more like, you know, the kind of soulful songs like Whitney Houston, towards grunge. Grunge is the other thing. Grunge and like rough Kurt Cobain kind of vibe. It was kind of like a backlash almost, and it kind of equalized again. So it was kind of grimy backlash. The kids in the 90s would be either listening to things like Whitney Houston, Prince, and all the 80s pop musicians that were still very on top, like Michael Jackson and like pop musicians. Madonna was just basically every decade was hers. And even David Bowie was still kicking in the 90s and 2000s. But the kind of 90s grime, the grunge. Why am I keep saying grunge? Grunge was like kind of like almost, or the Creep, Talking Heads, kind of like almost like self-loathing vibe, like kind of like fuck you and leave me alone, but leave a tip, listen to my song, but leave me alone. Kind of like the teenagers' rooms had this sign: toxic environment, do not enter, like keep out. And there's like radiation symbol on them. It's like, but bring me pancakes, mom, please. But keep out. But